Too many of us are filling our schedule while quietly draining ourselves. In today's video, we're talking through some of the reasons that you feel like you are always busy, but still kind of behind. Because at the end of the day, there is only so much time in the day, and we cannot be doing everything. And like always, it doesn't take massive work or changes to experience massive impact. The name of the game is always going to be small tweaks, because here's what I know. You most likely do not lack discipline. You clicking on this video tells me that you are a pretty disciplined person, considering the fact that you even have a schedule to fill, or you know what you got going on. So it might not be a discipline issue. It might actually be a discernment and decision issue. And we're going to break down some of that today. So first things first, where is your time actually going? The first time that I even had this realization or sat down and audited, truly audited what I was doing, when I was doing it, and why I was doing it, was on the other side of burnout. Because baby, if you do not sit yourself down, your body absolutely will. And here's what I know. Going back to the beginning of our conversation, we talked about that crash at the end of a busy day, a full day. But having a full day does not mean that the activities and the actions and the tasks in that day were actually filling you. And what happens after we have several back-to-back days full that turn into a full week, that turn into a full month, that turn into a full year, when we have several consecutive crashes, it is that eventually after that crash, we are going to burn. And I am here to let you know that I burnt out so you don't have to. So when I sat down and I did the exercise that we're gonna actually go through today, it was on the other side of burnout. And I had absolutely no choice but to change. My literal options were change your life or stop living it, okay? That is the only option, because these bodies are temporary and they can only push so far. This concept that we are invincible and we can just go ahead and sleep when we dead is absolutely ludicrous, and I hope that you abandon it expeditiously. So when I sat down and I looked, I realized that there were three main areas that were draining my time, and they are probably draining yours as well. And while they are things that actually need to occur and happen in our lives, they don't always need to be done by us. The first one was my life operations, okay? And this just falls into everything you gotta do to keep the trains running. All right. Yes, we need groceries. We need laundry. The house needs to get cleaned. We need to pay our bills. All those things need to happen. And they will. They just do not have to be something that is constantly happening in a reactive or defensive way. We can absolutely be proactive and play offense when it comes to our life operations. I like to say, set it and forget it. And the main way that I do this is by having real support and systems for my real life. And if it is a system that you have to constantly be intervening on behalf of, if it is something that requires your constant manual intervention, it is not real support for your real life. To a certain extent, the decision should be made for you, the action should be taken, or the thing should be actively gathering feedback, insight, and bringing it back to you for you to make a decision on and keep the trains moving. But if it means that it only happens if you do it, then it is not truly creating real support for your real life when it comes to life operations. Let me give you an example of this. When I sit down and I think about my money system for my real life, not my investment strategy, that's a piece of it, but my actual real money system for the dollars that I use for my daily living, all right? Everything flows into accounts on its own. It then goes to the respective expenses that it was earmarked and allocated for, all right? So money is getting poured into one bucket, right? Then it's going into the smaller buckets that it was allocated for. And then it is getting handed off to the people that it belongs to, AKA the folks that I gotta pay bills to, okay? It is going into the areas and the investments that make sense for my real life. It's paying for my class pass. It is going into my account for my hair getting done every day, because that is a system and support that I put in place. Not every day, but every couple of weeks, right? I have a standing hair appointment, which is another system. It is a system for my actual life ops that I set up to support me. I sit down in front of this camera and I talk to you all often because, one, it is what I am called to, but it is also a part of my profession, which means, baby, I gotta be able to set up in here and talk to you. I gotta be able to show up to work. And if my hair is not done, that cannot happen. And if that does not happen, then you are not being served. And if you are not being served, then I am not being a responsible steward of my calling. So for that reason, I need real support for my real life. When you sit down and you reflect on your actual week, you will probably probably find that way too much of it is being taken up by life operations. Here's another system. I do not do deep cleaning of my home. And I am a person who appreciates a clean home, but I simply cannot do it. When I found myself burning out, I realized that every single possible day of my week was accounted for with something. I was using my entire week to work, part of my weekend to work, and part of my weekends to actually maintain my life. I was doing deep cleanings of my house. I was resetting everything. I was paying all of my bills. I was calling my family. I was going to church. I was doing so many things every single day of the week. And while all of these things needed to get done, they were essential to me actually being able to live. They were not all things that I was the only person who could do them. So I delegated. I found an incredible house cleaner and I love them so very much. And I will die on this hill that the things that we call luxuries are actually not luxuries. So many of us have capital and resources available at our disposal, but we weren't taught to use them to our best interest. We were not taught to invest them in things that actually multiply our time, our energy, and attention. So when I sat down and I actually looked at my money and where it was flowing, I realized that I could quite easily take a chunk of money that was honestly being wasted every single month to reallocate to getting my house clean. And by God's grace, I also moved into the house that I'm sitting in right now. So cleaning it myself was going to be more of a task than it had ever been. I could not in good faith responsibly take 5 hours out of my Sunday to clean my house every week. It just wasn't a wise use of my time, especially when I was foregoing real priorities and real things that aligned with my values, like actually going to church in person. All right. Too many of us are competing with our real priorities based on perceived priorities or things that we have an obligation to do. We have to get better about actually discerning what it is that we value. Based on what we value, what are we prioritizing in this current season? And then aligning our actual schedules and tasks with those real values and priorities. And if that seems like something that you're interested in, also send us a message down below with any questions that you have, or hit me up if you want to talk to our team, because we would absolutely love to have you in our programming, supporting women to fill their days with their real priorities instead of their obligations, because the compound effect of that is designing a life that you absolutely love. And it starts here, but we can only cover so much in a quick YouTube video. So if you want some more support, hit that link down below and we would be so happy to chat with you. All right, back to the video. Thing that was quietly but constantly draining my time, energy, attention, and leaving me with absolutely nothing to give was recurring decisions. I know. And you're like, Abria, what does that mean? Well, when I tell you, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, wow. Yes, recurring decisions. Recurring means happening over and over and over and over again. Decision, meaning choices that you need to make. What choices do you find yourself constantly having to make over and over and over again? And somehow, every time they come up, we act like we don't know that they need to happen. I'll give you a couple. What am I going to eat for dinner? Why is this such a battle? Why are we fighting for our life every single day like we don't know we have to feed ourselves? Why are we acting like we don't know we have to feed ourselves and feed them kids? What is it? What is it about these recurring decisions that we quite literally have to make in order to sustain life, but they seem like the hardest thing in the world? I think that honestly, so many of us are decision fatigued. When we think about everything that we consume and take in and do in a day, we are taking in more information than we ever have in this digital world. And because of that, seemingly small decisions feel absolutely exhausting. Like, what am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? Where is my yoga mat? All of these small things and small tasks add up over time. And I promise you that making small tweaks to put them on autopilot is going to free up so much space in your mind and ultimately in your life. So when it comes to my meals, when it comes to what I'm wearing, when it comes to the activities that I am doing for my body and the decisions that I need to actively make and keep flowing in order to care for myself well, I have automated them. And not in the add AI kind of way, but in the internal way where I can easily look at my week, look at what I need to prioritize, and automatically know what I am slotting in where based on my real values and my real priorities. That is not an external system. That is an internal system, because when we have better control over ourselves, we are then able to live our lives more intentionally. And that's just fact. And the last thing that is quietly draining your life and draining your time and eating up your schedule manual, baby, are obligations. Obligations, and I will die on this hill. Obligations and commitments are not the same thing. Obligations are perceived priorities, okay? Obligations are roles, responsibilities, tasks, actions that we have taken on, all right? They are things that we have picked up that do not belong to us. An incredible book that I love is called Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and John Thompson. And they talk about the scripture in the Bible that essentially communicates to us that every person is responsible for carrying their own load. But then it also says that we as believers are responsible for helping to carry the load of others. And this is a scripture that we often get wrong. Why? Because we translated it to load for both words, but there are actually two different words that are used in the Bible to define this particular word, right? So when it says that every person is responsible for carrying their own load, that specifically responds to something like a knapsack, right? Every single person is responsible for carrying their own knapsack. That is a rightly sized responsibility for the person, for one individual person to carry. When we think about it in relation to our daily lives, that is you making the decisions that you need to make for yourself. If you did not plan enough time to get to your meeting on time, that is on you. That does not now become my responsibility. The way that this shows up in so many of our lives is that we have people in our lives who do not do what they are supposed to do. And then they are either looking to us to fix it or to emotionally support them and reinforce the behavior that they made. So maybe they don't want you to fix the problem, but they want you to sit there and listen to them talk about it for 25 minutes in order to be supportive. Is that a great use of your time, energy, attention? Probably not. So when we think about this concept of obligations, sometimes it is us actually doing things for people that they should be doing for themselves. It is us taking on things that, well, somebody needed to do it. It did not need to be us. Just because nobody else raised their hand does not automatically make it Abria's problem. And that is something that I have had to truly learn the hard way. But I am so glad that I have learned it. So when we think about this concept of people's loads, right? Everybody has their own backpack that they are responsible for carrying. And then there are going to be things that are a little bit heavier, quite a bit heavier. Those are boulders, all right? So the word for that translates more to a boulder. So think about the difference between a knapsack and a boulder. Massive, right? One person can carry a knapsack, but multiple people need to help to carry a boulder. So we are, yes, called to support other people and help them carry their loads, but we are called to help them carry their boulders, not their knapsacks. And for too many of us, we have all of these obligations on our plate because we have made them perceived priorities in our lives. And they are not. They are actually the knapsacks, the responsibilities, the roles of someone else, but we have assumed them for a variety of reasons. There are quite a few. At the end of the day, they are simply not ours to carry. So let's recap. What are the 3 ways that we are quietly draining our time, energy, and attention? Why are we constantly busy, but we find ourselves still feeling behind? Well, number 1 is probably from your life obligations. You might think that you have real support for your real life, but you probably don't because it is still requiring far too much manual intervention from you, and that is taking you away from actually doing the things that only you can do. And let's not gloss over or underestimate the importance and the severity of this issue. The compound effect of you constantly spending your time doing things that are not aligned with your purpose and what you were truly placed here to do is that people do not get served and God is not glorified to the extent that he could have been. We quite literally can miss out on our destiny. We can miss out on God's best by being consumed doing tasks, activities, events, taking on responsibilities that were ultimately never ours or just did not need to be done by us. And I think that in this culture of productivity and organization and optimization, it is even easier to get off course because sometimes we find ourselves being completely enthralled and energized with the planning of the activity versus the actual execution. Or we get such a strong hit, such a strong sense of accomplishment from doing the things that are easier or more familiar. And I I find this particularly when it comes to women. So yeah, it's easier for you to spend your entire Saturday cleaning up your house instead of going to that Pilates class that you know is best for you. It is easier to run a ton of errands and take on responsibility that you really do not need to be taking on than it is to have that hard conversation with the friend that you truly want to go hang out with, but y'all just haven't had time to reconcile, right? So let's be mindful that in this overfunctioning, in this tendency to just take on all of these life obligations and try to manage them all our own, let's call it what it is, which for some of us, sometimes it is us overcommitting, but also it is sometimes us avoiding, right? That process of just wanting to plan the thing out instead of actually doing it is you wanting to get that false hit and quick hit of satisfaction without actually having to do the hard work, what we perceive as hard work. But imagine how much harder it is going to be when you forego what was actually intended for you. It could either be hard because you did it or hard because you did it. That functioning that happens in our brain is a real thing. That process that happens in our brain where we want to actually do what feels more predictable and comfortable, or we want to spend more time planning the thing than actually executing on it because that planning gave us a quick hit. That is a real process that's happening in our brain, and it's called the reward prediction error. And we have to actively work against that because naturally we're always going to do what is safer. We're going to do what is familiar. And we are people who want to feel good. We want to feel rewarded. We want to feel, encouraged and have that joy and that dopamine hit. But remember that those things are going to actually come from you executing on what you were designed to do, not just operating in default mode and doing what's easy, doing what's familiar, or doing what is distracting. So first things first is life operation. It is slowly but surely draining too much of our time, energy, and attention. So we have life operations draining our time. We have recurring decisions like where we gonna eat at, okay? And what are we wearing today? That is draining our cognitive function and taking up so much brain space that could be automated in 1 second, girl. And lastly is going to be obligations, perceived priorities. And we have to get better about truly discerning what is ours to carry and what is not. So where did I start with actually unlearning and undoing this? It started with me stopping. It started with me getting still. And I know that feels backwards and it feels uncomfortable because we just go and move so much. But I need you to actually pause. And then I want you to sit down and reflect on what you value. Not what do you find valuable, like a Louis Vuitton bag versus a Loewe bag, right? And we can always have the fashion discussion, okay? But that is not what I mean when I say, what do you value? I mean your values. For me, personally, my faith is a core value and everything that comes along with it. I believe that Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior, okay? And He is the way to life. That is a value. That is foundational to my being, and it informs every single thing that I do. I also believe that family is incredibly important. It is monumental, revolutionary, and that could be your family of origin or your core family. And I am deeply committed to not mishandling the people in my life. And because of that, I take a lot of time, energy, and attention to 1, care well for the Lord and serve Him well, and 2, care well for the people in my life and also all of the other people in the world. I do not believe that we will ever look into the eyes of somebody that God does not love. And because of that, I am deeply committed to caring well for others. That is what drives me being able to sit here and chat with you today. I want you to live a good life, okay? I want you to live a great life. I want you to live your best life. And that life is defined by the life that God actually designed you for and intended for you, and not you just settling for whatever comes your way. Your life should not be filled, but you feel empty. That is absolutely positively not what you were made for. So I want you to sit down and think about your values. What truly guides you? What lights you up? What informs your decision making? What should be informing your decision making? Because for too many of us, our decisions are being informed by fear and lies instead of truth. Yeah, I know. And then from our values, we have to assess our priorities. And we have this conversation all the time, but priorities really is not a plural. Priority is really a singular word, but we as a society have hijacked it and made it a plural. So when it comes to your priorities, let's just say top 3 to be safe, all right? I know that saying one priority is a bit much, so let's say 3. 3 healthy priorities. And here's the caveat. Your priorities will and should shift. The priorities that I had as a college student are not the priorities that I had as a post-grad single woman, are not the priorities that I have as a young woman with a man that I love and no children. And I'm sure that they will change once again when I do have children. Even on a given week, my priorities change. A given month, my priorities change. A given season, my priorities change. So in order to determine your actual priorities, I want you to assess the season of life that you are currently in. What needs to be happening in order for you to live the life that you are truly called to, not the life that you are settling for because you think that you have no other option. So first things first, you're going to assess your values and your priorities. Once you have a clear understanding of that, and I really encourage you to do this on a pen and paper. Don't use ChatGPT, don't use Claude, don't try to type it out and get distracted. Sit in a quiet place. You can even pause this video right now and do it, which I think is one of the best ways to execute and act on these types of things. I want to encourage you to be a practitioner, an active practitioner. Do not just be a passive consumer. Do not just take in and hoard information, but actually practically apply it to your real life, because that is where transformation actually occurs. So I want to encourage you, take a pause and let's do these steps together on a pen, with a pen and a piece of paper. You're going to assess your values, and then you're going to assess your priorities. Determine your priorities based on your real life. Right now, my priorities are 1, my relationship, and really focusing in on caring well for the love of my life and caring well for our lives together. My body is my second priority. I do not negotiate when it comes to my body. And my third current priority in this season is business development. I want to grow this thing to wherever God wants it to go. I have no idea what that looks like in function. I don't know what that looks like. I don't have a view of it, but I know what it feels like based off of the promise that He has given me. So my relationship, my body, and my business are my top 3 priorities right now. Every part of my life is working in service of that. And my faith and my family are always core, functional, foundational. Like in my wellness to a certain extent, but when I say my body, I specifically mean my fitness and my movement, because your girl is on a mission to get stronger than she's ever been. Amen. Okay, so we're gonna write out our priorities based on our values. Then we are going to take a step back and look at our last week. We are just reviewing our last week. Look at your schedule, look at your agenda, look at whatever you did. And I want you to just assess, just read through what you have actually been doing. What is happening throughout your week? Love it. We got that done. Now that you have sat down and reflected on your week, I want you to compare the values and the priorities that you actually defined to what you have truly been doing. And you are going to identify where there are gaps, or where how you are spending your time is misconnected or disconnected from what you say you value and you are prioritizing. I know. When I did this, I was like, ooh. I know. That's how I felt at first. But what we have to remember is that all of this is just data, and data is neutral, okay? We use it, we take it, and we leverage it to make informed decisions. So that is what we are now going to do. You know your values, you know your priorities, and you know where there are mismatches or gaps. Okay, love it. Now, make a list of what you truly need to get done. What needs to truly be done in a week based on your values and priorities. So now that you have sat down and looked through all of that information, you should be able to clearly see what needs to be done in your week and what you actually need to be doing throughout your week that is aligned with your true values and priorities. Those are the things that you are filling your day with. And anything else, you are either delegating or creating a support system for those things to happen. Sometimes that means hiring out. Sometimes that means us just setting a process and a system to actually support us throughout our real lives. And that is what we spend so much of our time doing in our community with our clients and our incredible life designers. We love y'all so very much. So if that seems like something that you need some support with, if you need actual real empowerment and encouragement and to be equipped with the skills and the systems to not just live busy, packed days, but actually do the things that are aligned with your purpose, do the things that are actually moving you towards the life that God created you to live, hit me up. I want you to hit that link down in the description box to talk to our team. Check out our freebie, which if you love this exercise, I think that you'll love that even more. It is a beautiful start for you to begin truly designing your days, because when you design your days, the compound impact is that you design a life that you love, the life that you were truly made for. I recently realized that one of my priorities being business development means that I quite literally cannot continue to do everything that I have been doing. I will be the fall and demise of my business if I do not delegate accordingly. And we have this conversation often, but I want us to remember that when we are delegating, we are giving other people opportunities to act and to move in their specific talents, skills, gifting, and to grow. So I found an incredible video editor, and we are in the process of signing a contract to work with him to edit our videos. He'll be editing these videos for y'all. He'll be editing videos in our programming, and that is going to be such an incredible weight lifted off of my shoulders and my incredible team's shoulders, because we have always been bootstrapping our content creation to a certain extent. We are incredibly creative people, and it's something that we have always been able to do. We are gifted to do it. However, we are currently not the best people to do it, because what got us here is not going to get us where we are going. We are taking one step at a time to design a life we absolutely love, and that has to begin with us actually filling our days with our real priorities instead of obligations that we picked up left and right. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button down below and also subscribe so that you can join the family. And again, check out the link in the description box. Send me any questions that you have, and also download that freebie because I think you will absolutely love it. All right, bye.